All right, how's it going, you guys? Dr. Jeff, Rythmia Life Advancement Center, Chief Medical Officer here at Rythmia in Costa Rica. So, family members of addicts. So, just get right into it. There's a lot of people that are in the addiction field, counselors, therapists, life coaches, different people, and they say, you've been as family members of somebody that has someone that's an addict, they say, cut them off, let them hit rock bottom, let them bottom out, and hopefully they will rebound from this. And you got to cut them off as family. And what I always say to the families I've worked with, I used to run a rehab in Malibu called Passages. It's a really well-known place. I never told a family member in my history of my career to cut off their family member, ever. I never told them that. And the reason is because I have been to the funerals of those so-called addicts that overdosed or committed suicide or died. And if you've ever seen the family of those addicts that have died, you would never in your life tell those family members to cut them off, because they live with a huge amount of guilt and a huge amount of doubt and a lot of things that they wish they could have done or did do, and they're in doubt, and it's something that's with them for the rest of their life. So I tell family members of addicts to have really healthy boundaries. Do not cut off the people in your life that are addicts. Do not do it. I speak from this of experience because I've dealt with this my entire career. Do not cut off people that have an addiction, they're struggling, because what they're seeking is connection. They're seeking acceptance. They're seeking love. They're seeking understanding. Now, obviously, they're dealing with it in a really inappropriate manner. They're using substances to try to figure out what to do with their life, right? We all know it's not the right way. We can understand this, right? But I would never tell a mother or a father to cut off their kid, ever. Now, what I would tell them, though, is have healthy boundaries, have an appropriate sort of support network that is based on love, is based on sort of ways to overcome this addiction, things that they can do to help their kid or their spouse or their nephew or whoever it is, how to come out of this, right? That's what I tell people. Do not cut them off. Now, an interesting thing in addiction is that in the family system, there's always a kid who is a black sheep, right? We like to talk about the black sheep, right? And the black sheep, all their brothers and sisters are fine. They're doing well. But this one kid I had a patient, I had a mom tell me her daughter was snake bit. She was snake bit. So in the southern part of the United States, that means that they have some serious problems, and there's nothing that really has worked well for them. And what I've told these families, right, I've worked with these families for a long time, is that these kids feel that they are the black sheep. They feel that they can't do anything right. All their friends are fucked up. They don't feel good about themselves. They're playing out certain scenarios. They're not productive. They're always doing bad in school. They're always choose poor relationships. Guess what? The kid in your family that is a black sheep is actually the most emotionally sensitive out of your entire family. Their role in the family is to absorb the emotional energy, the emotional projection of you. So if you want to help your so-called addict kid or family member, do not project onto them your emotional baggage. Look at you. Look at yourself. Do not avoid yourself by looking at them and pointing to them that they are the issue. Now, they do have issues. We all know this, right? But in a healthy family system, everybody is working on their own issues. But in an unhealthy family system, the black sheep individual is the one that is the most emotionally sensitive and is absorbing all the energy from the family. And in the family that's not functional, that's not doing so great, right? They are taking on all this depression, anxiety, and self-loathing, and all this sort of chaotic stuff, self-esteem issues. They're taking it on. They're holding it for the family members, right? And then what happens is that they are overwhelmed. And then they don't know what to do. They think they're the problem. They think that they are the ones that are problematic and dealing with all this crazy stuff, and they seek for relief. And relief is easily obtained through drugs and alcohol. And that's what's happening, right, with the black sheep concept. So the way to deal with your family member who is an addict, a so-called addict, as I like to say, is to work on your own issues as a family, work on your own issues as a couple, work on yourself, because you don't want to give this person in your family that's super emotionally sensitive, you don't want to give them all your pain and your burden, your turmoil, and your anxiety, the crappy marriage you're in, and all this sort of chaotic stuff you're dealing with. Don't give it to your kid. Don't give it to them. Let them have their own life. And so what you do is you work on yourself. You work on your marriage. You work on your own interpersonal relationships. You deal with this stuff. And so then when your sibling or your spouse or your kid gets some healing, right? And I had this deal, I dealt with this in the rehabs I worked at, is that I had a family member do really well. I had a patient that was amazing, did amazing. And we had a family session. And guess what? The family was not happy with their sobriety. They were not happy with them being grounded and happy and successful in their ways that they were working towards and working on, had a job and was going to school. They didn't like it because what that meant is that if this person who was the black sheep, who was the target, who was the most emotionally sensitive, they were no longer absorbing the energy of the dysfunction of the family, that meant that I, as a dad, had to work on my marriage. I had to work on myself. I had to work on me as a person and deal with my own issues. And I didn't want to do that. I wasn't ready to. So, family members, do not abandon the people in your life that are in your family system that have addiction. Do not do it. Have healthy boundaries, but do not abandon them. Sometimes I get a lot of counsel, and I listen to people in more sort of rigid addiction sort of like groups that say, cut them off, let them hit rock bottom, do not engage, let them come to you. All right, well, society has done that to them for about the last 10 years, and they feel completely alone. And is that really beneficial? Well, maybe for some that can help, but the risks are high. And the risks, in my opinion, are too great to do that. I don't believe that you should cut off your family member if they have an addiction. I just believe that you should have healthy boundaries with them and work with them. Don't let them take your money. Don't let them stay at your house for a week if they're going to like trash the place and bring over a bunch of crazy friends that are going to use and drink all your alcohol that you probably have in your house. Don't do that part. However, let them know that you are always behind them, that you have their back, that you're supportive. and let them go through their own process. However, this comes with a price. And the price is there's always this high risk thing happening, right? There's always this sort of like dynamic going down with addicts and their families. And we all struggle with it, right? Every family that I've ever known either has an addiction in their family or somebody really close to them that has an addiction. They have to be able to deal with it in a way that's appropriate. And the way you do it is you just show love. You do not ban them or block them. I've been to too many funerals of families that did this and said, my therapist told me to cut off my son, so I did. And now he's dead. And now I'm at his funeral. And now how do I feel about myself as a father, right? It's not good. Rythmia offers a different approach to things. We offer a more sort of acceptable routine to how to deal with addiction and how to deal with family system dynamics and how to deal with this whole process that goes into families that have addiction. The way we do it is we help, for example, I'll talk about the family members because, the addicts have to get off their they have to get off their meds, their drugs, everything. They got to do a lot of work to get to Rythmia, to do plant medicine. But the family members can come right away. And what they learn at Rythmia is that they have their own dynamic that's playing into this sort of system that's creating an environment of dysfunction for their sibling or for their kid or for their spouse or whoever. And they learn what it is that's going on, and they connect with themselves, and then they connect with their family members. And then they learn, there's a lot of work I have to do. When I was at Passages, this family I worked with were very upset. Like I said earlier, they were upset that their sibling, it was actually their son. They were upset that their son was happy and successful and moving on because now they had to look at their marriage. They had to look at themselves. They didn't want to do that. They wanted to always focus on this person that had the addiction, this kid, this son they had. They always wanted to just look at him. They didn't want to deal with themselves. It's called avoidance through uproar. They wanted to look at everything around them instead of themselves. Okay, so if you're watching this video and you have an addiction, I'm not trying to give you an out. You gotta get your shit together. You gotta get this under control, right? Now, you have a neurochemical thing going on, a biological thing going on, that's leading you to crave drugs and alcohol, like physically. Then you have this behavioral thing going on that is based on habits, coping skills, and like ways to avoid and all this kind of stuff because you don't want to engage in all this. Okay, got it. Ayahuasca helps both of those scenarios. Helps rebalance neurochemistry. It resets cortisol. It resets serotonin. It resets dopamine. It helps you get out of the physical cravings of addiction. And then it helps you address and understand the behavioral side and all the stuff that's leading towards your behavior, whether it's trauma, abuse, neglect, abandonment, confusion, self-esteem. Helps you look at that. That's amazing, right? It's amazing. Now, for all you family members to have a person who's a so-called addict in your life, right, in your family, what you got to do is you got to learn what's up with you. What are you avoiding by dealing with them? What do you not have to deal with? Because you can focus on them. You don't have to worry about yourself for a long time. You're like a therapist. A therapist doesn't have to worry about themselves. Oh, I'm working with 100 people. My 100 patients have all these problems and all these things. Oh, I'm so overwhelmed. It's a wonderful job. I get to work with all these people. I'm a saint, right? I don't have to deal with myself. You're like a therapist. You can avoid yourself through your work with your siblings, your family members, your spouse, and all this kind of thing. You can avoid yourself as long as you want, right? Well, guess what? I'll tell you something. The therapists that do this, that don't look at themselves because they avoid themselves through their patients, they burn out. They don't do well. They actually turn crazy. They turn to drugs and alcohol, just like their patients do. Okay, so if you're a family member of an addict, let's wake up. Okay, let's wake up. Healthy boundaries. Do not project onto them your own emotional baggage. Don't do it. Let them have their own experience. Because I'll tell you what, my most favorite patients of all, the patients I worked with, trauma, addiction, depression, anxiety, all kinds of patients that had severe psychiatric issues. My most favorite patient are the patients that have addiction. And I'll tell you why. Because they are artistic, they are creative, they are emotionally sensitive. They are the ones that are in tune to what's going on in the world. And they're just overwhelmed because the world, as we know, is a bit rough right now. There's a lot going on and they feel it. They're empathic. They feel it. They feel it. So let's look at so-called addicts for what they are. They're actually empaths. They feel what's going on in the world, and they're overwhelmed by it. They're also confused. They don't have the tools to deal with it. Now, the world wants to say they're selfish and they're lost. They don't care about anybody else, and they're losers, and they're all this kind of crap. I've probably met about 1% of addicts that fit that category. The most of the people I've worked with that are so-called addicts are amazing individuals who are beautiful and they're artistic. They're so smart. They're brilliant. So let's nurture this within the addicts. Let's nurture this and get them out of that vibe. Let's get them into a positive situation. The way we can do it for all the people around them, right? All of us are around these people that are addicts. What we can do is no longer project onto them our own emotional baggage. We can also have healthy boundaries. I'm not going to let you take $100 from my wallet tonight. And we're going to validate who they are as people, which is really cool. And if you're from a family that expects your kids to go to Harvard or some crazy shit like that, back off from that and let them be who they are. Maybe they want to go to a technical school. Maybe they don't want to go to school. Maybe they want to be artistic and just paint. Okay, just let them do what they want to do for their life. And do not avoid your own marriage. Do not avoid your own emotional sort of situation that you've never really dealt with. Don't avoid it through them. Don't do it. Let them have their own experience. That's the goal. Okay, so if you have an addiction and you're watching this, okay, this is what I want to say to you guys. Okay, you guys that have this addiction. If you're watching this, right, you're probably not. You're probably high right now. You're probably smoking some pipe in the corner. Okay, but if you are watching this, I want to tell you, let's give your family a break. Let's give your family a little bit of something to hold on to. Can you guys listen to what I'm saying? And can you guys give your family a fucking break so that they can actually try to love you and give you what they're trying to do and to help you? Because what you're doing is not helping the situation, okay? They are going to try to let you be yourself. They're going to try to let you flourish and be all that you need to be and let you be somebody that's like emotionally aware of the world and an empath. They're gonna allow this. Your family's gonna allow this now. Give them something to hold on to. Okay? Do the work for yourself. The people that have this addiction. Do the work. Come down to Rythmia. Get off these drugs. Get off this alcohol. You don't need it. It's just blunting who you are. It's blunting it. And family members, let's really look at addicts for who they are. They're amazing people. They're empaths. They're actually very emotionally sensitive. And they don't know how to handle it. That's what this is. Addiction is based on people that don't know how to handle their emotions. And their emotions are very strong. Let's do this. Work as a team. Let's do it. All right, you guys. Dr. Jeff, pura vida. See you next week. Family members of addicts, do not shut down your family members. Any therapist that tells you to cut them off, Tell them to call me because I got a list of funerals I've been to. It's not cool. I don't want to go anymore, and I won't because I'm not going to have my people that I work with die. I'm over it. It's not going to happen anymore. I need the emotional warriors that are out there that are addicts. I need the emotional warriors ready to fight against what's going on in the world. And the addicts are tuned into it. Pura vida. See you guys next Monday. All right, Dr. Jeff.